Yeah, good. Yeah, I'm settled here in Chennai, which used to be called Madras, which is on the southeast coast of India, looking towards Singapore. And so I do storytelling work here, and I was contacted by Catherine, and she asked if she could come and be part of her annual festival, and I said sure. And she wanted to go and visit professional storytellers in the countryside, and that's the kind of crazy thing only I do. But she wanted to go, and we set her up with translators, and she met a number of professional storytellers of the Mahabharata. She was researching her CD of the Mahabharata, and she gave workshops in our festival. She was in Chennai a number of times. It was really wonderful because, you know, a big thing about Catherine was that she worked on epics. And here I'm going to show you the 13 epics that she organized storytellers telling in her home. Hold on, I'm going to do screen share. Yeah, can everybody see that? 2005 England?
Yes, can see that.
Twice a year. I'm sure some of the people who are in this session now were at her home, I guess in the springtime in April or May, and then again in September. She would have people come, and each person would tell a chapter of the Canterbury Tales or the Mabinogion, or you can see all of these stories, some of the great epics from around the world. So she hosted it all in her home with just storytellers and families and friends. No audience, no paid audience, just for love, just for community. Wild. So she had a great run with some of these great epics from around the world. I don't know what she did in 2018. I bet she did the Mahabharata because she was researching that. Okay, I'm going to come out of screen share. So yeah, she especially loved epics, which are long, long stories where the main characters go from one end of the realm to the other and meet people from upper class, lower class. They're really encyclopedias of their time and space. And she, you know, Catherine was not a formal scholar, but she just had an interest and a love for learning and sharing. Let's see what else I want to say. So she inspired a lot of us in Chennai to do similar collaborative events, and we're still working on that. Collaborative in the sense of linear, one after the other, doing something. And well, I guess that's, you know, I also want to thank Catherine because she recommended for me to be a guest editor of a 12-page section in Storytelling Magazine in 2017 about the way storytellers are using video conferencing for performance and teaching. And I did that 12-page section, and I'm very glad I did, and I owe that to Catherine. So Catherine, I know you're listening to us. Thank you very much. Anyone want to tell me, have I left anything out about Catherine? She was very warm, you know? She was very warm and loving and inclusive. You know, she wanted everyone to feel included in the workshops that she did.
I am certain, Eric, you left some things out, but we have lots of people going to talk about her. So you go ahead and go for your story.
Okay. She reminds me of a line in a famous South Indian poem, ancient South Indian poem that begins, to us all towns we belong to all towns and we belong to all families. And so Catherine was like that too. So I thought I would mention an epic today that I've especially been involved with called the Epic of the Ankle Bracelet. And I believe I have about 10 minutes now. Towards the end, I'll tell another little story that I discovered in the mountains, because the Epic of the Ankle Bracelet begins on the seashore down here in South India, and the main characters end up in the mountains. So this epic, it's not an ordinary epic because there's no military expedition. It's just a woman and her husband who walk 500 miles across the countryside, almost 500, because they want to start a new life. They were both born, well, she was actually found floating on the ocean in a basket by fishermen. And eventually she was married when she was a teenager. She was married to a young man of the fishing merchant community. And tragically, he fell in love with another woman. He fell in love with a dancer and left his wife for a whole year and spent all the family money on this other woman. But then he came back to his wife and said, "Dear, I'm sorry. Please forgive me." And she said, "Of course." So they decided to walk then to the central city in South India, Madurai. And they walked, but before they got there, on the outskirts of town, they decided that he would go into town alone and try to sell one of her ankle bracelets. In those days, instead of wedding rings, certain women had ankle bracelets with the precious stones inside little gold containers. So he went into town and called out, "Anklet for sale, anklet for sale. It's a beautiful anklet with rubies inside the gold." So there was one man in the crowd who said, "Young man, I know exactly who will want to buy that anklet. Come with me." And so the young man, the husband, went with that man and was brought to the king, the local king. And at that time, at that moment, the man who brought the husband said, "King, this is the man who stole your wife's anklet yesterday. Put him in chains." Because an anklet that looked just like the one the husband was trying to sell had been stolen from the queen the previous day. They looked almost exactly the same. So the husband was put in chains, and the king decided that he would actually put him to death for having stolen the queen's anklet. And the deed was done. The husband's head was cut off, and the body and the head were thrown in the street. The moment that happened, his wife, who was outside town, of course, she felt it. You know, her body felt it. And she came into town, excuse me, and she saw her husband's body in the street. And of course, she knelt down and started screaming. You know, "How could this happen? My love, what happened?" And then she looked up at the people. There were people looking at her, and she said to these people, "How could you have let this happen?" And everyone said, "Well, we didn't do it." And the woman said, her name was Kanagi. She said, "This is your town. You know what's going on. You could have stopped it. You saw my husband was innocent." You see, the husband had actually been brought to the king by the court goldsmith. It was the court goldsmith who had stolen the anklet from the queen. But the court goldsmith had seen an opportunity to frame and blame the stranger. So she said to the people, "You know, don't try to fool me. This is your town. You could have done something. Are you the kind of people who only care about yourselves and your own families? Are there no decent people in this town? Are there no gods in this town?" Well, the people said to each other, "This woman's mad." And they turned away and they left. So she proceeded to the palace. She barged in. The guard said, "Who are you? What's your name? What's your father's name?" She barged in. She didn't even stop. And she got to where the king was sitting, and she said to the king, you murdered my husband." The king said, "It's my duty to punish a thief." She said, "My husband was not a thief." And she proved it. She broke open her remaining anklet. There were rubies inside. She said, "Please break open the anklet my husband was carrying. There were rubies inside. Now break open the queen's remaining anklet." They broke it open. There were pearls inside. You see? So her husband's anklet matched hers, and it proved that her husband had not stolen that anklet from the queen. the king stood up and said, "Oh my God, I am the thief." And he stopped breathing. He stopped his blood pressure. He fell down. He died. But Carnegie was delirious, and she was not satisfied. She walked around the city 3 times. She tore off her left breast, threw it against the city wall, and requested the god of fire, "Agni, burn this city, cleanse it. Only let good people and animals escape." And Agni, the god of fire, did it. She didn't do it. I always tell people, she didn't do it. The god of fire decided to do it. And some of the good people who had been advising the king that her husband was innocent, walked with her to the mountains, the western mountains, and there they all started a new tribe in the jungle. And I have visited those people. They're still there today, the descendants. So that is called the Epic of the Ankle Bracelet. It may or may not have happened historically, but it is a folk tale, and we have a classical written version that's linguistically dated to have been written about 1,500 years ago. I want to tell you another very brief story, that I did my field work for my PhD in those mountains with members of a tribal group, not the group that she started, but another group. And they have a similar story. I know I just have 3 minutes. They have a similar story, but it's different in a very key way. This is from the Kani people who live in the forest near Pechiparai. There were 7 brothers. The 6 older ones said to their younger brother, "Come, let's go hunt for wild pigs." So the younger brother went, and when they were deep in the forest, the 6 older brothers turned on him and killed him with their spears. The story doesn't tell us why. But the young brother had 2 dogs who went running back to his wife, and just like Lassie, you people who are old like me, you know Lassie, right? The 2 dogs said, "Come, come," and they brought the wife to where her husband was dead in the forest. And again, she also started weeping, lamenting. But nearby there was a snake and a mongoose. Now, usually a snake and mongoose are natural enemies. The mongoose is trying to kill the snake. But on this day, they were playing with each other, going round and round and round. And when they heard the lady screaming, they came, and the snake said, "Okay, don't worry, madam, we'll get the medicine." And the snake went to a mountain and found a certain flower, medicine, and brought it back and put it on the younger brother's body, and he came back to life. And so the husband and wife and the 2 dogs went back to the village, and they told the Panchayat leaders what happened, and the 6 older brothers were exiled. They had to leave the village, which in that time and place was a very serious punishment. So that in that story, you see, the wife is able to bring her husband back to life with the help of animals and flowers. So I feel that the optimism of nature is in sharp contrast to the Epic of the Anklet, which is she's not able to bring her husband back to life. Of course, at the end of the Epic of the Anklet, when they're in the forest, her husband comes down from heaven, and it turns out he was an incarnation of a god, and she was an incarnation of a goddess, and they go back to heaven together. All right, I have 1 minute to go. I'm going to stop here. Well, thank you. Come on, give me 1 minute of feedback. 1 minute of feedback. No applause, just any other feedback. What do you think?
Oh no, no, we don't have time for a lot of feedback, so I'm not going to. I am going to say, put your feedback in the chat. That would be lovely. Eric, those are really wonderful stories, and I do love the flowers at the end, but I also love that the wife stood up, to demand that justice be done, in the first story. And sometimes we need to stand up and demand that justice be done. Sarah has a question about what translation of the Epic of the Ankle Bracelet do you recommend? So
Alain Danielot. Alain Danielot.
Right, and will you write that over there as well in the chat? That would be great. Thank you, Eric, so much.
Okay, that is the leading story of the Tamil people, who are not, they are not a nation, they're a language group.
Wonderful,
Okay.
wonderful. Great.
All right, thank you. That telling was for Catherine.
And you did, yeah, this is awesome. This is really great. I love this. And we're being taken down roads that I haven't been taken down, so I'm very excited about it. And so Catherine also was a connection to Canada. And here she is in Vancouver in British Columbia. And she's over to the side on this one. But I just thought, I was sent this picture and I said,